everyone, and welcome to ProWritingAid 101 for Business Writers. I'm Micah McGuire, ProWritingAid's Growth Marketing Manager, and today I am joined by Tom Wilde, our Head of Client Solutions. It's awesome to see you all here today. Wonderful to have you with us. We have a great session planned. So for today's agenda, we are going to be going over some of the most useful features and tools for business writers, including the real-time checker and goals sidebar, the summary report, the readability report, the sticky sentences report, and our rephrase tool. If we have some extra time, we will be going over a couple of extra features, but our plan is to get you guys in and out the door in about 45 minutes. And we want to make sure that we have time for Q&A as well. Of course, we want this to be driven by what you guys would like to know. So if you have questions at any point during the walkthrough, please put those in the Q&A, and we will answer those at our Q&A at the end of the session. If for any reason we are not able to get to your question, please feel free to send it to hello, HELLO, at ProWritingAid.com, and just put in the subject line that you were a participant in today's Business 101 session, and we will get back to you as soon as possible. All right, Tom. Well, I think that does it for all of our housekeeping. So let's go ahead and jump right into the walkthrough.
Thanks, Micah. Hi, everybody. Great to have you along today. So just to reiterate Micah's point, this is kind of an interactive session. If you've got questions as we go along, if you've got any particular challenges you're having with ProWritingAid that you've already identified, just pop them in chat or the Q&A box, and we'll deal with those as we go. But just a quick introduction. My name is Tom Wilde. I'm Head of Client Solutions at ProWritingAid, and that means I spend most of my days working with customers, mainly corporate and institutional customers who are looking to bring ProWritingAid into their team or their organization. And that quite often involves customizing it for their particular use, so building custom rule sets and so on. If that is something that you're interested in, by all means, get in touch with me either in LinkedIn or directly afterwards on my email address. That's tom.wilde@prowritingaid.com. But for the purpose of today's demonstration, we're just going to do a walkthrough, like Micah said, and you know, I always describe ProWritingAid, or I think one of my clients described it best. Actually, they describe it as your second pair of digital eyes. It's like the editor that sits on your shoulder. And for many of the customers that I talk to who are having challenges with the efficiency, the effectiveness, the speed at which they produce content, the accuracy, so reputational matters with the copy and the content and the emails that they produce. And those may be, like I said, emails, those may be reports they're writing, they may be pitch documents, bid documents. It doesn't really matter what you're writing. ProWritingAid is built for you. And there are a wide range of integrations. So wherever you're writing, there's a version of ProWritingAid that works for you. So if you're writing in Microsoft Word, fine, we've got a Word add-in. Likewise for Outlook. Likewise for Google Docs. We've got extensions for most major browsers, so you can get integration with your web applications. We've recently, in the last 12 months, launched ProWritingAid Everywhere, an awesome native desktop app for both Windows and Macs. And that will integrate with any desktop software that you're using. So it really is your writing partner. Sits by your side or on your shoulder, and it highlights the improvements and the mistakes as you go. And that means you're getting time back. If you're writing or if you're reviewing writing, you can focus on what's important. And that is the content, okay, the story, the message, okay? How are you structuring that? How are you communicating that? You leave the detail to ProWritingAid. Okay, let's get straight into it. I'm going to share my screen. So some of you will be familiar with ProWritingAid. Some of you may be brand new to it. This is how you find it. This is how you find your integrations. Come to our homepage. You can sign in here. You can purchase licenses here. You can even purchase team licenses here too. There are a list of integrations right at the bottom of the homepage. Simply look at the integrations tab here. That'll take you through to a page of all the different variations of ProWritingAid that you can download. But for the demo today, we'll mostly be focusing in the web editor. The web editor is the tool, is the platform rather, that sits on our website, and it allows you to create and store documents there. Now, it is the only version of ProWritingAid that will store your documents, and for enterprise customers, we can turn this off. None of the other versions will store documents or your text in any format. What it looks like is this. So you can see a really clean interface with a range of buttons across here. Each of these is a different report you can run to diagnose some of the problems in the writing that you're doing. And this UI is somewhat ubiquitous. So you'll see that in every integration. So you'll have familiarity wherever you're using ProWritingAid. Quick word on language settings. We work in English only, but you can set 4 different variations of English. So we cover US, UK, Australian, and Canadian English. That obviously has an impact on things like spellings, what's accepted and what's highlighted as possible mistakes. But the really interesting stuff and the really important stuff happens under reports. This is just a sample internal report that I'm using today. And you'll see some mistakes already in there. So they're introduced. So we're going to go hunting for them. If I turn on the real-time checker, you'll see a number start to count as it finds the mistakes and improvements. Some of them are stylistic, so they may not be mistakes. They may just be suggested improvements. It's looking in 4 areas. And if I come over to the sidebar and click on the improvements tab, I can actually filter. So you'll see it's gold for style, blue for grammar, purple for passive voice, and red for spelling. So it's really clear and easy to identify the type of mistake or improvement that you're looking at. And you can just filter and look at one type at a time. We're going to focus on everything, though. We're going to tackle it all. And in order to make changes and start actually improving this document, I'm going to hover over each highlight in time. Now, how you work is up to you. Some people turn this off and only turn it on at the end of a page or a paragraph or a section. Some people just keep it on permanently. Some people will make their edits and do the reviewing in the document itself. Others work in the sidebar. You can do either or. It really is up to you how you prefer to work. I like to work top to bottom in the document itself, making incremental improvements. So as we see the first one, this is a real obvious mistake. Okay, I'm using the wrong version of the word to. Any spell checker will find that or should find that. Okay, nothing special there. In terms of making a change, I just click on this green area. But before I do that, quick note, you can ignore a suggestion. Now, any tool like this is going to suggest from time to time a false positive. Okay, nothing is as good as the human eye when it comes to recognizing mistakes. There will be contextual issues. So I can ignore that if I want, or I can disable. Ignore is your friend. It's a one-time ignore. It will ignore it in that instance. It will remember where it's ignored. Disable is permanent. If you want to re-enable, you'll need to come through our support team. So just bear that in mind. So here we go. I'm going to make that change. I'm going to work through a few of these. This is a style issue. And in fact, it focuses on readability. Now, I describe readability as being kind of the ease with which you transfer the information from the screen or the page to your reader's brain. So here, by using 2 verb forms, by saying manage to complete, I'm taking up more brain space of my reader. If I just say completed, it means the same thing, but I'm saving them time. I'm producing a shorter document. I'm making every word work harder. So let's make that change. Next, it's identified I'm starting 4 sentences in a row with the same word, the. That's repetition. And repetition leads to boredom and disengagement on the part of your reader. So try and fix it. I'm going to just make a change there and type hour to replace one of the these. And as you'll see, the highlights on the other these has now disappeared. So it's reevaluating the whole time. Final one I'm going to show before we move on is an example of the passive voice. Now, for many people, they may have heard of the passive voice, but they may not understand what the passive voice is. And in fact, that applies to lots of writing kind of skills and capability. So it's a big focus for us. Okay, we are interested in your document, but we're more interested in helping you as a writer. So we incorporate a lot of learning content within the tool that helps build skills and capabilities of those who are using it. So you can see here, by clicking on that little orange eye, it opens an in-app learning window that tells me all about the passive voice and the active voice. And in fact, there's a video embedded here that demonstrates the difference. I think it uses some Jackie Chan quotes to demonstrate the difference between the passive and the active and how you transfer from the passive to the active. So it's reinforcing learning in sometimes quite a light way. but it's doing it at the point of need. Okay, it doesn't take you away from your document, doesn't put you on a training course. It's giving you learning at the point of need. And as you can see, the machine learning models that are powering ProWritingAid have analyzed this sentence, and they presented two possible rewrites in the active voice. It doesn't know whether I'm using team as a plural or singular noun, so it's given me both options, and it's up to me to decide which one I want to use. All right, that's the real-time checker. It is the singularly most popular report in ProWritingAid. About 99% of our users use it every time they log into ProWritingAid. Let's take a look at some of the others. Before we do that, let's just have a quick word about goals, which is the second tab on the sidebar here. Goals breaks down the myth that you are born a good writer. Actually, we think of writing as more of a science than an art, and we break it down into its constituent elements. And by doing that, we can show you where you need to focus, and you can focus on those sub skills first and foremost and build that skill set and become a better writer in doing so. So you'll see with the goals sidebar, I can select which kind of document I'm writing, and that will have an impact on which metrics are displayed. For a report, we're looking at all the things you'd expect: grammar, spelling, style, sentence length, business jargon. And you can see actually on this first screen, all of the areas are below or missing target. So for grammar and spelling, I'm at 38%. My target, 80% or higher. Okay. Sentence length target is sentence length of 11 to 18. So I'm on the very upper edge of that. I'm hitting just over 18, in fact. For those targets I'm on target, I'm getting a green result. So readability, my readability grade for this document is 8. That's using a Flesch-Kincaid rating. And actually my target is a grade of 10 or lower. So I'm on target. That's good. Why is this important? Well, two things. Number one, as a writer, you start to build a picture of your benchmarks, your expected kind of scores, what you would expect a first draft to be hitting in terms of those metrics. And it helps you diagnose and improve in real time, because as you start to accept corrections, as you'll see, if you watch that 38% score, as I start to accept some of these highlights, we'll see that 38% climb. There we go to 40% and beyond. Secondly, a lot of our customers use this for a quality assurance tool. So they may set provisional boundaries or targets that their teams have to hit before submitting a report to a customer or sending an email to a user. So it's a very easy way of measuring and giving direct feedback to writers about where they need to make some changes. From there, we're building an idea of what other areas we want to focus on, and we're going to run the summary report to go even deeper on that. But before I do that, just a quick word. Don't be overwhelmed by the number of reports we can see here. There are 20 reports in total. If you were to run every single report every single time you wrote a document, it would double the amount of time it takes you to write something. So don't do that. Most ProWritingAid users are running somewhere between 2 and 4, maybe 5 reports on a regular basis. And those will be the reports that deliver the most value to them. So they help with their specific weaknesses. Now, let's get an idea of what those are. If I run the summary report, this is like goals on steroids. It's going to give me a real deep dive. And actually, the report is super detailed. Take some time when you're first using ProWritingAid just to familiarize yourself with it and which bits are relevant to your writing. So it highlights my 3 key scores. Those are grammar, spelling, and style. Then it categorizes or brings together all the areas where I'm looking good. My document is looking good, readability, and so on. They're all on target. Importantly, it shows me where my document needs more work. We know about grammar, spelling, and style, but look, sentence length, business jargon, glue index, complex paragraphs. And I can click through to any of these areas, and we use really simple visuals to demonstrate a point. So here you can see, although I'm on target for paragraph level readability, probably 15 to 20% of my paragraphs are still classed as very difficult to read. Okay, so there's a little warning kind of firing in my brain. Let's go and run the readability report, or I think let's have a look at one of the others. I think the other Yes, sentence length. So let's go and run the sentence length report. So I know now which of these reports are going to be most useful, going to fix most problems. Now, the reports work in one of two ways. I'm quickly going to show you the star report because it's a favorite of mine. And this report works very similarly to the real-time checker, insofar as it's going to provide highlights and simple one-click changes, but it groups together each issue by category. So I can see, for example, all of my passive voice examples, and I can I can accept or change each one at a time. In fact, we've got a little bit of a problem there, because usually this would, oh yeah, okay, I think I know what's going on there, but normally that would actually suggest the active rewrite as we saw originally. You can see things like business jargon. One of my favorites here is readability enhancements. So again, where can I ditch clutter? So rather than saying to be able to, just say to. Okay, so simple incremental improvements. The other reports work in a more advisory way. Okay, so I think we mentioned readability, we mentioned sentence length. Let's have a look at those. So readability, I get some really simple to understand readability metrics. Most of you will be familiar usually with Flesch Reading Ease or Flesch Kincaid grade. And it shows me which of my paragraphs are most difficult to read, and I can easily navigate to them. Okay, so this paragraph, Flesch Reading Ease 48.3. That's quite low. I should be closer to 60 or 70. So in order to improve readability, I'm looking to do one of two things: reduce the average number of words per sentence, or reduce the average number of syllables per word. So historically, this is where ProWritingAid kind of pauses while you make the edit. But now ProWritingAid can go even further. And that's because we're harnessing some of these large language models, the LLMs that you're reading about. So you're probably all familiar with GPT-3, even GPT-4, ChatGPT, and so on. We use those models in some areas of the tool, and Rephrase is one example of that. Let me show you how that works. So if I were to click, let me just click off the readability report. We go back into real-time checker, and I'm going to select a sentence. I'm going to select this sentence. For those on the board who want to get into the detail, a week-by-week timeline is here. And you see, as I highlight it, that button that said rephrase came up. And as I click on rephrase, a pop-up appears, and it gives me some options of how I could rewrite that sentence. I could make it more fluent. It's a great option if you're a non-native English speaker. I could make it more formal or informal. I could make it more sensory. That's great if you're a creative writer. It's adding kind of more sensory detail, more descriptive writing. I could shorten it. That's what I want to do, or I could expand it. I'm going to shorten it. Okay, and the reason I'm shortening that, we'll see it, look at this in a minute. This is what's classed as a sticky sentence. Okay, it's got a high number of glue words in it. Basically, it means the words in this sentence aren't working as hard as they could be. I could say the same thing with much less detail, far fewer words. And actually, if I click on short, you'll see it's just saying, why don't you just say detailed timeline provided? Okay, a timeline with details is available, and I can simply make the transition. So Rephrase is our first steps into harnessing the power of some of these larger language models within ProWritingAid. And over the coming months, you are going to see some mind-blowing improvements with this tool. They're going to go way beyond sentence level rewrites. They're going to go into much, much more detail and give you some incredible power. So stay tuned for those details and product improvements. Before I move on, I did mention sticking. I do also, I know Micah mentioned this as well. I do just want to highlight this because this is a really useful report and it works so well with the rephrase feature. Sticky sentences is unique to ProWritingAid, and it is hunting for sentences that have a high proportion of glue words, hence them being sticky. Now, if your sentence has more than 40% of its words as glue words, the chances are you could say the same thing much more efficiently and much more effectively. Glue words, they're the 200 most commonly used words in the English language. So they are things like prepositions, articles. What they are not is verbs and nouns, which are doing the heavy lifting in writing. In fact, it's verbs that glue your words together. That's what keeps readers reading, breathes life into it. So you'll see, I'm just going to hide semi-sticky sentences. You'll see here that it's identified 3 sentences that are sticky. I can navigate to each of those. In fact, let me choose a different, let me go to this one. There we go. This will make clear that this is a one-way street and that everyone will need to start using it at some point. So this sentence has a very high proportion of glue words. And I could be saying the same thing much more easily. And once again, rather than having to rewrite that yourself now, you could just highlight that in a real-time checker and select rephrase. Select shorten. And it's going to give you some options. Now, don't forget, as you've read and seen in the news with GPT-3, GPT-4, don't take everything as the polished, finished article. Okay, it still needs your improvement. So I might look at this going, well, maybe it's being a bit too brief. But maybe I want to take that as the starting point, but just introduce a little bit more detail. But whatever you do, however you choose to use it, it's certainly going to save you time and brain space too. Okay, that's enough about the reports. Let's have a quick look at what makes teams and enterprise the ideal option for groups of users within organizations. And to do this, I'm going to focus first on some of the customization you can do within ProWritingAid. So when I'm in ProWritingAid, my main menu gives me, it allows me to access lots of different areas, including admin areas and customizable areas. And here we're going to look at style guides. Now, style guides is how you set custom rules or custom settings so that particular readability rules are observed. So as an individual user within the style guide setting, I can set a rule that limits the number of words I use per sentence. I can set the passive voice rule. I can check for clutter words, check for strong verbs rather than weak verbs and nouns. I can do checks for formal, informal, polite, confident language, undertone of voice, all sorts of things. I can even set rules around my company name, how it's handled, punctuation, what's your style, how should you use commas, Oxford commas, for example, hyphens, numbers and dates. What's your style regarding how you use numbers in documents? And these are incredibly important for organizations. Consistency is key. So all of these are available. Inclusive language, that's a really interesting one. All of these are available to as kind of preset settings, but you can go a stage further. And this, for, again, Teams customers, is very, very interesting, because I can create a custom rule here that will automatically apply to everybody in my team. And I'm going to show you a couple of examples. So we're going to do that under advanced style guides. And as you can see, I have a lot created here. When you log into this part of your of ProWritingAid, of your account, you'll see personal. You'll see a table for personal rules. Those will apply to your own writing. But if you have a Teams license, if you're trialing or using a Teams license, you'll also see a table here that has your team name on it. And any rules created there will automatically apply to all users in your team. Okay, let me take you to a rule that demonstrates some of the simplicity here. So creating a custom rule is 4 simple steps. And this rule was created for the University of Pennsylvania because staff and students, regardless of the fact they've invested a huge amount of money in brand positioning and brand name, which is University of Pennsylvania, staff and students continue to use Pennsylvania University. So this rule is going to find every example of Pennsylvania University and replace it, or suggest the replacement of University of Pennsylvania. And all they do is complete 4 fields. The first is an example wrong sentence, any sentence with the incorrect term in. Then they isolate the match, so they specify the words that they want the tool to find, and then the replacement. So this is a very simple find and replace rule. They create a message for the user, for the writer. They test the rule. If it's green, that's good. That means the logic works. And then we can go in to a sample document. Let's try that wrong sentence. Turn on the real-time checker. A yellow highlight appears almost immediately. And there's the rule I've created. It's as simple as that. I say it's as simple as that. It can be as simple as that, because Style Guides allows you to create some really awesome and very powerful rules. And I warn you, if you're interested in language and linguistics, this can become quite addictive. There is an area where it gets into kind of more technical language. So I'm going to show you a quick example of that. Here's an example of where we're looking for the word impactful. In the UK, we describe it as a Marmite word. Marmite is a spread you put on your toast in the morning. Some of you may be familiar with it. It famously advertised as the spread you either love or you hate. Impactful is one of those words. You either love it or you hate it. Most people dislike it. It's not particularly strong. So it's simple. We want to create a rule to find the word impactful and replace it. But here's the thing. With impactful, it's like a waffle magnet. It's often preceded by an unnecessary adverb. So in this case, it's incredibly. But it could be really. It could be highly, it could be very, and we want to capture any adverb that's used before impactful and remove it. So we use what is called POS tagging, parts of speech tagging, which is kind of like a linguist's code, if you like. RB is the POS tag for adverb. So here I'm stating that we want to look for an adverb before the word impactful. Now, it's in brackets with a tilde, which is basically the way that we define a non-obligatory match. So if we find the word impactful and there's an adverb there, we will include the adverb in the match and remove it. If there's no adverb there, then we will still match the word impactful. And we're going to replace it, but we're going to suggest multiple different replacements because we don't know the context of the sentence. So we're going to offer the user, the writer, 5 alternative options. We separate each with an @ symbol, which means they will each appear as their own clickable entity in the pop-up. We create a message, we test it. It's green, that's good. Now let's go in and run that rule. We're going to add it 3 times. We're going to change one of these adverbs to highly. We're going to remove one of the adverbs. And then we're going to turn on the real-time checker. And 3 highlights should appear. And there we go. There's the rule I created. And I can choose what I want to do with each one. You'll see there are I've got another custom rule there that we can ignore. That's just something I'm testing for a customer. So there we go. That's Style Guides. We also have snippets. So snippets is again, from this main menu, it's worth pointing out, it's our text expansion tool. It allows you to create pre-formatted chunks of text. So I send lots of emails to customers, people joining new demos, new trials. Rather than write that email every time, I just save a template. I create a shortcut. And then when I'm in my document, wherever I am, if I'm in Word, I'm in Outlook, wherever I'm doing this, this will work. I start to type the name of the snippet. My options appear on screen, and I can simply drop that snippet in. I say simply drop that snippet in. Never do demos with live tools. There we go. So there is a snippet dropped into the tool. So if you're using, maybe you're responding to lots of customer service queries, maybe you're including policy statements, policy documents on a regular basis, snippets is a great time saver. There's a lot more to explore besides. We have a term base, which is like a shared dictionary. If people are interested in that, we can connect later and I can go into that in more detail. But where I want to finish is just on some of the admin tools. So I'm going to go back into my previous screen and show you how you can manage license cohorts. So again, from this main menu, if I click on Teams, it takes me to my team user management page. Here's my ProWritingAid team. We shorten that to PWA. Here are all of my users in ProWritingAid's team. As an administrator, I can see this and I can edit it. So I can find people who maybe have left the team. Abby left a while ago. We can remove Abby as a user. That frees up a seat. I can then use that seat and invite somebody else to join the team. Okay, so you can do some really efficient license management here. You are paying for just the licenses you use, and you can reuse them, reallocate them throughout your term. Okay, let's have a look now at some analytics. So again, from this left-hand menu, I've got two options for analytics. Let's just cancel that. Oh, in fact, let's just go straight to the page. I've got two options. I've got team analytics and team activity. Team analytics is going to give me an overview of the usage by my team. So I can look over any of these time periods, and I can see how active my team have been in ProWritingAid, in using ProWritingAid. So I can see in the last month, 71% of my team have used ProWritingAid. I can see they've accepted more than 3,000 improvements, and I can see an approximate cost saving or time saving associated with that. I can see those metrics as an all-time overview or as savings across the year as well. It even highlights bias improvements because we consider those so important. If I look at team activity, it dives into a deeper level and looks at individual users. So here I can see, just by ranking or ordering some of the information, so if I click on accepted suggestions, it will show me the data in order. And I can see, for example, that Alex, one of our QA testers, I'd expect him to be quite busy in the tool. He was active in ProWritingAid 7 days in the last week, 258 suggestions accepted in the last week, more than 1,500 in the last month. So this is great because it shows you who's engaging with the tool, but also who might need extra support from the tool as well. Okay, and that just about brings us to the end of the demonstration. Before we go, I'm just going to show you I mentioned early on that we try and have the same UI, so it's got familiarity wherever you're using ProWritingAid. I'm just going to show you that in Microsoft Word. So you can see I've got ProWritingAid tab, also ProWritingAid installed, and it appears here as a tab on my ribbon. As I click on ProWritingAid, I can see all of those same buttons, all the same reports available to me. I can start the real-time checkout, which opens the sidebar. I've got my two tabs, goals and improvements. I can filter. In fact, the only difference really is that here I'm clicking on a highlight for the pop-up to appear. Likewise, I mentioned that it works in Chrome and all browsers. Here I've got a sample email that I'm just about to start writing. As I start to write, I've got ProWritingAid turned on. You can see that by the dot in the bottom right-hand corner. As I write a sentence with some errors, it will highlight the errors immediately. So there are my red underlines because they're spelling errors. Now, if I go down to the dot, I can actually open that sidebar. If I've got a longer document, so maybe I'm working on a longer an email or something else, a report in a web application, I can even open the full editor as an overlay. And there we go. So I can run the same reports, I can make changes, and then I can apply those changes back to the document. And that brings us to the end of today's demonstration. I hope you found it useful. I'd love to know if anyone's got questions based on what you've seen today. If you are using ProWritingAid for the first time, then take time is my advice. Give it a week or two to build it into your writing. Writing is all about habits. It takes time to understand where the value is, but the more you use it, the more it will give you back. And as you'll see from the comments from our Chrome store users and other places, those that get the most out of it are those that have been using it for more than a couple of months and realizing actually this can really up my game. Hey, Micah.
All right, Tom. Well, I am just checking out the Q&A box to see if we have any questions. So let's see. We do have one that they are a user who's used it for a month. I am interested to know if I can use the templates in my emails. So yes, if we are referring to that snippets tool, that should work in our Chrome integration as well.
Yeah.
As you can see, I'm demonstrating here.
Yeah, exactly that, Alicia. So if you see there, so snippets work wherever ProWritingAid works. So definitely give it a go. If you're using template emails, this is going to be a real time saver for you.
Any of those settings that Tom was demonstrating, such as the Teams dictionary settings and all of that, that is universal across all of our integrations. So no matter where you're using ProWritingAid, if you are using it in Word, if you are using it in one of our browser extensions, if you are using it in either one of our everywhere tools, those will be available to you. We did get another question regarding rephrase and privacy, which we have good news on that front. So they were just curious about, does OpenAI store their information, all that good stuff.
Okay, so yeah, we do have good news on that front, and you're absolutely right to be concerned. So, we've been doing this, we've been building language models and maintaining them and improving them for getting on for 13 years now. And security and privacy has been paramount importance to us. So we never store text. As I mentioned, we don't have any rights to use for writing. Then these large language models came along, and what a lot of people didn't realize early on is that many of them are, using your text when you're using them to improve their models, and they're storing that text too. Now, we have managed to get what's called a limited use exception. So we use OpenAI's, we don't use their API, we use Microsoft Azure OpenAI, and that allows us to have what I said is an a limited use exception, which basically means we use a version that follows the same security protocols that we have. So when you're using rephrase, we are neither storing, or OpenAI is neither storing your text or using it for its own model training. So you have exactly the same rights as when you're using our core products, our core features, and our own machine learning models, which is, as Micah says, it's big news. It makes a lot of difference to many of particularly our corporate customers.
And then, Tom, did we also want to discuss a little bit about the EU servers?
Oh, yeah, that's a really good point. I'd totally forgotten that, Micah. So as of today, this is huge news because it's happened today. We have just gone live in the EU. What that means is historically, our servers were located where Microsoft Azure are our cloud hosting partner. We use what's called their West US geography. So our servers are located in California, which is great. However, some customers in the EU and in some other areas are very particular because of GDPR and other requirements about where their text is transmitted to and how it's handled. And so we have opened servers, again, Microsoft Azure servers located in the EU in Dublin, so what's called their North Europe geography, which means we can now serve customers who have strict restrictions over where their text can be sent to, where it can be analyzed, how it can be handled. So if that's a kind of important consideration for you and your organization, then do get in touch, because we can give you the information that helps make sure that you're making use of that particular server and not the US.
Because as a company, we put security and privacy basically first in all things. We want to make sure that you guys have complete control over your writing and that you know exactly where your data is being used. And in our case, it's not being used. So, all right. Well, Tom, I think that may wrap up our Q&A. It looks like we can go ahead and probably sign off and get everybody just a few minutes back in their day.
Fantastic.
All right, everyone. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Again, if you come up with any other questions, sometimes things pop up after the fact. Remember, you can always email us at hello@prowritingaid.com. But other than that, I hope you all have a wonderful day or evening, depending on where you're located, and have a fantastic rest of your week.
Thanks, everybody.